You might remember when Mel Brooks, the same comedy legend who gave us Blazing Saddles, decided to poke fun at Star Wars at a time when even joking about that universe felt risky. In 1987, Brooks essentially said, "Hold my matzo ball," and released Spaceballs. This wasn't just another spoof. It was a bold parody that took aim at the biggest franchise in movie history. While George Lucas was busy counting revenue from toys and action figures, Bill Pullman stepped in as the reluctant hero lone star. John Candy played his loyal MOG companion, Barf. Daphne Zuniga appeared as Princess Vespa. Rick Moranis stole scenes as the hilariously insecure Dark Helmet. And Mel Brooks himself doubled up, portraying both President Scroob and the mystical merch-loving yogurt. The movie wasn't a massive box office smash. Critics mostly shrugged it off. But somehow, over time, it became one of the most endlessly quoted parody films ever made. Today, we are counting down 15 strange and fascinating facts you probably never knew about Spaceballs. From the real reason George Lucas approved the film, to a rotting pizza puppet that nearly hospitalized a performer, to a long-running meta-joke that somehow turned into a real sequel. And make sure you stay until number 1, because the story of how this underperformer turned into a cult classic proves that sometimes the best revenge is simply outlasting the critics. Before we launch into hyperspace, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the beautiful chaos of 1980s cinema. Now let's fire up the Schwartz and begin with number 15. 15. George Lucas approved the movie, with one huge rule. Mel Brooks knew better than to parody Star Wars without permission. That's a quick way to end up in court before the opening crawl finishes. So Brooks personally called George Lucas. To his surprise, Lucas loved the idea. He even joked, "The Schwartz is with you." But Lucas had one non-negotiable condition: no merchandise. No toys, no lunchboxes, no action figures. Lucas wasn't about to let anyone touch his merchandising empire. Brooks agreed immediately, and then turned that restriction into comedy gold. The movie endlessly mocks fake products like Spaceballs, the t-shirt, the lunchbox, the coloring book, the breakfast cereal, and of course, Spaceballs, the flamethrower. The band didn't limit the joke, it became the joke. 14. That absurdly long opening shot was intentional. When Star Wars: A New Hope opened with a massive Star Destroyer gliding across the screen, it stunned audiences. Brooks decided to push that moment until it became uncomfortable. The opening shot of Spaceballs drags on for over 80 seconds, showing ship after ship passing by with no dialogue and no payoff, until the very end. Brooks wanted the audience to start questioning their patience. When the final reveal lands, complete with a bumper sticker and license plate, the payoff works because of how long it took to get there. It sets the tone perfectly. Epic scale, stretched to absurdity. 13. Rick Moranis built Dark Helmet from the ground up. Dark Helmet wasn't just a parody of Darth Vader. Rick Moranis turned him into an emotionally fragile control freak who couldn't even see properly out of his oversized helmet. Many of the character's funniest traits, his tantrums, insecurities, and improvised dialogue, came straight from Moranis. Brooks encouraged him to experiment freely. That's how we got Dark Helmet playing with action figures and declaring, "Evil will always triumph, because good is dumb." Moranis played it completely straight, which made it infinitely funnier. 12. John Candy nearly walked away from Barf. When Candy first saw the original costume design, it involved a full dog mask covering his face. He refused. Brooks immediately realized his mistake. Hiding John Candy's expressions would have been criminal. The costume was redesigned to keep Candy's face visible, with a small nose, fur accents, and a motorized tail. Candy personally controlled the tail with a hidden switch, timing every wag to the joke. The result was one of the most lovable characters in parody history. 11. Bill Pullman beat out major stars while working construction. Before becoming a Hollywood leading man, Bill Pullman was a stage actor paying the bills with carpentry work. Mel Brooks auditioned several recognizable faces, including George Clooney, but they felt too polished. Pullman brought exactly what Brooks wanted: a capable hero who seemed slightly confused by everything happening around him. His straight-faced performance anchored the chaos and made everyone else even funnier. 10. John Hurt gladly died twice. The infamous diner scene parodies Alien, and it only worked because John Hurt agreed to mock his own iconic death. He returned to recreate the moment, only this time, the creature bursts out, dons a hat and cane, and launches into a musical number. Hurt loved it, later saying it was the most fun he'd ever had on set. 9. The Planet of the Apes ending got roasted. When Mega made crashes onto a desert planet, the scene mirrors Planet of the Apes, but instead of the Statue of Liberty, we get a decapitated robot head. The gag turns one of cinema's most dramatic reveals into a joke about vacuum cleaners, and Brooks reportedly called it his favorite moment in the film. 8. Dot Matrix's costume was brutal. Princess Vespa's robotic companion Dot Matrix was physically portrayed by Lorene Yanell in a rigid fiberglass suit that allowed almost no movement. Joan Rivers recorded the voice separately, delivering rapid-fire sarcasm that gave the character personality. The stiffness of the costume actually enhanced the robotic feel, making the parody work even better. 7. The VHS gag predicted the future. Brooks had just bought a VCR when inspiration struck. What if the villains could watch the movie they were currently in? That idea became the famous instant cassette scene, where Dark Helmet rewinds, pauses, and fast-forwards through Spaceballs itself. Decades later, it still feels ahead of its time. 6. Mel Brooks suffered for his double role. Brooks played both President Scroob and Yoghurt. The gold makeup used for Yoghurt caused skin irritation and required long hours of application. He filmed scenes out of order to let his skin recover, joking that he looked like a golden Oscar statue. The discomfort was worth it. The characters became instant classics. 5. Princess Vespa wasn't a typical damsel. Daphne Zuniga insisted Vespa be smart, assertive, and capable. Brooks supported that choice, telling her everyone else was the joke, not her. Vespa became the grounded center of the film, surrounded by absurdity but never reduced to it. 4. The disco song was deliberately ridiculous. Instead of an orchestral score, the movie ends with a synth-heavy disco song performed by the Spinners. It directly mocks Star Wars epic music by going in the complete opposite direction. The result is bizarre, catchy, and unforgettable. 3. Pizza the Hut was a health hazard. The Pizza the Hut puppet used heated cheese-like materials that began to rot under studio lights. The smell was unbearable, and the performer inside the suit endured intense heat and poor airflow. By the end of filming, the puppet was unusable, but unforgettable. 2. Spaceballs 2 is actually happening. What began as a joke, Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money, is now real. Production is underway at Amazon MGM Studios, with a planned 2027 release. Rick Moranis is returning, along with Bill Pullman and Daphne Zuniga, proving that even a 40-year punchline can eventually pay off. 1. From modest release to cult classic. When Spaceballs premiered in 1987, it earned about $38 million on a $22 million budget. Not a failure, but not a phenomenon. That came later, thanks to VHS rentals and constant cable reruns. Over time, the film became endlessly quotable and deeply beloved. What started as a mild success grew into a pop culture institution. One rental, one rerun, one basement screening at a time. Spaceballs didn't just parody a galaxy far, far away. It built its own universe. And now, decades later, the Schwartz is still strong. May the Schwartz be with us, always.